Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Conspiracy Farm, where we don't start the conspiracies, we just add the water. And now, your host of the most state-of-the-art, most informed podcast on the interweb, I present to you Pat Miletich and Jeffrey Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for war?
Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode is underway of the Conspiracy Farm. Jeffrey Wilson riding shotgun with my partner in crime, UFC Hall of Famer Pat Miletich. How are we doing today, champ?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Well, man, I'm really stoked, as you know, I'm sure you are, to talk to this gentleman. I mean, I don't know when he sleeps. I don't know if he does. We're going to talk about it because it seems like he's, you know, the Energizer Bunny, like on steroids. I don't know, but he is a special force. No, I definitely apologize. I didn't mean to infer that, sir. He is a special forces sniper UFC vet, and he is the founder of Sheepdog Response, and he's the host of a couple cool programs called Hunting Hitler and another one that he just got into that we're going to talk about called Hard to Kill. Tim Kennedy is joining us today on the program. How are you today, sir?
Man, I'm living in a free world. As we speak right now, I'm wearing awesome little like Vans, a fanny pack with a gun, and no t-shirt, walking through the woods with my stunning son and my beautiful wife.
That sounds like a hell of a day.
Yeah. Got 2 workouts in, crushed some souls and ate them, and now it's it's time to rejuvenate the spirit.
Crushed some souls and ate them, and asked for seconds, I'm sure. Man, I mean, you wear so many hats, dude. It's very, you know, interesting doing show prep on you and just kind of following your career. You know, when did the bug bite you? When did the bug to be in this line of work that you're in? I mean, you said, and I've heard in other interviews, just really good at war, for lack of a better term, which is a weird thing to be good at. But when did that bug bite you to be the kind of person you are, man? You got a very interesting story.
So there was no bug bite. There was a lifetime of conditioning. I come from a line of remarkable, extraordinary humans to, you know, the Great Depression, the greatest generation, my grandma making rivets that went on B-17 bombers, wow, to my grandpa that fixed the radio on the Bel Air, to my uncles that fought in Vietnam, to my dad, you know, at 5, 6 years old, he's like, "Hey, sons, can you sneak into this car garage? There should be a red Honda Civic in there. I need you to write down the license plate because he's part of the drug cartel." You know, and he has his 5 and 7-year-old son sneak into a car garage. And so, man, this is just life to me.
Because your father was a law enforcement officer in, you know, narcotics, I believe it was.
Yeah, I mean, that is putting it mildly. I think when you have a homeboy that steals a plane of cocaine from Pablo Escobar, and he's like, "So your dad was a cop?" It just sounds weird. You know, you're like, yeah, he was, but he's also the gangsterest dude I've ever met.
That's good stuff. Well, that's obviously good stock to come from, to do what you've been doing in life between the military, elite, special forces, fighting at an elite level in Strike Force, the UFC, and a lot of other things, TV, obviously putting out great TV shows, which, you know, you're a versatile guy, which is, you know, it's pretty rare. A lot of people define themselves with one thing that they do, but you can tell that you're a pretty centered guy that is versatile because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I never, you know, I am a singularly focused person, and I am driven by one thing. And for me to magnify that, I look for every opportunity in every avenue. And, you know, whether that was fighting or that was being in front of a camera for television, or, you know, it's all with the same purpose in mind. And that's to build this idea of freedom and what I think it means.
Yeah. And let's talk about freedom. Obviously there's been a big attack on the Second Amendment. I mean, we see the attack on the First Amendment constantly with this political correct garbage that we're dealing with. And, you know, I just sent a tweet to Dianne Feinstein today and basically told her off and said, You know, she said, you know, ARs can't be used for hunting. You know, you can't use them for self-defense, which obviously we know are both incorrect. And I basically said, this is blatantly false propaganda. I said, we keep them to protect ourselves from you and your friends in D.C.
Yeah, so I really like that Constitution thing quite a bit. And every single one of it, you know, like I follow the NAACP, and I really like when they go hard charging about the First Amendment and the protection of African Americans and civil rights. I love it. You know, the NRA. There's times where I'm like, yeah, preach it, brothers. And then other times where I'm like, man, are you protecting the Constitution? Or are you protecting, you know, interests in different gun companies? I really like freedom, and I don't care who perpetuates the voice of freedom. Nowhere in the Constitution did it say you have the right to bear arms when you're hunting, that you have the right to bear arms when you are going to be protecting yourself from a home invader. It says you have the right to protect yourself from the government, and that's why you have this right. And all of those other ones are because of that one. The first, the third, the fourth, the fifth, all of them come down to the government has to be scared of the people. And that's where we're at right now, where we have this problem where the people think the government needs to provide them with things, when in fact, it's just the people that need to provide everything for themselves. When the people are strong, we are free. And I think we just got to remember who we are. And we're the greatest nation with the greatest group of people on the planet. You know, that stopped fascism, that stopped communism. And we are going to remember who we are.
Yeah, you know,
it's the death of me.
The leftists will say, you know, when a person says, and you hear it all the time, obviously, you know, the government needs to be afraid of us, and they go, really, you're going to stop tanks and airplanes and this and that, and obviously what they're trying to do is elicit. Look, number one, I'm a staunch supporter of law enforcement and military, obviously. So we know that tanks and airplanes are not going to decimate the United States. They're not going to decimate their own country. It will most likely, if it ever came to fruition, it would be law enforcement trying to go door to door to take Americans' guns, and you know that's going to go bad for them.
Yeah, and I don't know who would do that. You know, like, they forget that the people that they're going to try and have enforce these laws are people that would be against those laws.
Right,
so, man, we just got to remember how beautiful this freedom thing is. And we've been so privileged to live in an era where no one has had to see the horrors of what it looks like to be under a dictatorship, to see the horrors of what fascism can do, to see the horrors of what socialism and communism does. You know, like, hey, go cross the border in North Korea and see how you like the thought of communism.
Well, and I think
you like socialism, go to Venezuela for a couple of weeks.
Right. Eat out of the trash with the dogs. No, I mean, that's a very, you know, poignant statement, because we've been kind of lulled to sleep these last maybe 50, 60 years, and we don't know how bad it can get. And some of the precursors to when it did go very bad was disarming the public. And I don't think a lot of people really get that when we're seeing it. And like you said, your Venezuela's, it can go very bad. And the last thing you want to see and have is a disarmed public against, you know, a government that's just out of control.
Yeah, I mean, look at the disarming. Everybody's like, "Oh, that never happens." You look at Hitler, you look at Castro, you look at Gaddafi, you look at Stalin, you look at like Idi Amin, you look at Mao, you look at Pol Pot, you look at Kim Jong Un. Like, every one of those people did exactly what we're talking about doing before they committed mass genocide. So
exactly.
I get it. Your show is conspiracy, but it's not. All it is history.
Right. Yeah.
You can paint it in any way that you want, but history proves that this is the exact template for people to start getting murdered by governments.
And it's always basically throughout history, it's always the socialists that try to take the free thinkers' guns.
Free thinkers, man, we just got to make more of them.
Yeah, in the name of tolerance and understanding.
You know, but we're also at fault. You know, there's this chasm, this divide, and there's no bridge for conversation right now, where it's like, right. Oh, look at these idiots, look at these snowflakes, look at these this redneck AR owning Alabama truck owning asshole. So that conversation never happens And because people are so divided, there's never going to be an opportunity for us to grow and for us to become free thinkers, because all the focus is on these fringe outer limits. And we have to bridge that divide somehow. I'm not exactly sure.
Well, you know, on the Conspiracy Farm, we talk. I'm sorry, Pat. Go ahead, bro.
No, it's just, you know, obviously the mainstream media they have a narrative to follow. That's what they do. And, you know, shows like this, we do our best to get it. You know, we're heard in 130 countries. So, you know, we do have an impact. We do have a growing fan base, which is great. So we do our best to educate people out there about truly what the Constitution is and what people need to stand for, and the criminal actions within the government that have been going on for, you know, several decades, obviously, and we're honest about it. We expose things, and for the most part, we get great responses.
Yeah, keep doing it, man. I think Joe Rogan's a free thinker. I think Tim Ferriss is a free thinker. You know, you guys, we just gotta inspire people to have the courage to think for themselves, to turn off that television and to remember that they have a brain.
Disconnect. Well, like you talked about, man, like any of those situations, or Pol Pot, where they disarmed the citizenry and things went really bad after that. How much do you think of all of this division is by design? You know, because in any kind of genocide, you know, not only is disarming the citizenry a part of it, but having some kind of propaganda, like in Rwanda, the Tutsis and the Hutus or whatever, where you no longer see the other side as a human being. How much of that do you feel is by design?
It's always by design. It was, you know, even everybody loves talking about Hitler because he did it so effectively and so perfectly. He dehumanized a massive segment of people and was able to disarm them, and then then corral them, and then gas them and burn them. And he first divided, he separated the perception of what we are. And, you know, united we stand, separated we fall.
Right.
And he used a perfect example of, he took fringe groups, outer limits, he painted them in this negative light, and then slowly eroded their freedoms, and then ultimately murdered them all. So, yeah, the template's there, and we're following it pretty pathetically.
Well, and it's global, because we had a show not too long ago about the goings on in South Africa. I mean, that's just a freaking powder keg just waiting to go off down there.
Oh, it's gone off. It is, you know, they are days away from running out of water, and they are already in racial wars of murdering each other. And it's the worst that it's ever been. And it's that powder keg has been lit, and it is ignited. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a good friend of mine who lives here in Iowa now. He's from originally what was Zimbabwe, and he was carrying an AK-47 on the ranch at 10 years old. I mean, it was that bad in Zimbabwe. So it's basically a carbon copy that's going on in South Africa that already took place when Mugabe was put in power down in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, breaks my heart, man. I love South Africa. I have some friends that were about to go there, and I almost physically prevented them from getting on a plane by stealing their passports because they would have been murdered.
Wow.
Yeah. It's that bad down there. So, you know, let's kind of spin into something a little more positive. I think this is really interesting, actually. You know, we see a lot of guys who have been through intense military careers, and reintegrating into civilian life is obviously not very easy for a lot of those guys. And you know, you just posted on Twitter and Facebook about that very thing, where the face that you make when you're considering how you're going to do it. Obviously, the first time you did it, you were already competing in the MMA. But did the MMA help you in that transition when you first left the military?
You know, I've always had a foot in both worlds.
Right.
You know, as a business owner and an entrepreneur, and you know, in television and fighting. Even when I was in the military, I'd still have to fly to LA and film a segment, or I'd still have to go to Portland and Oregon and fight in Seattle, you know.
Right.
So like, and then vice versa. When I, you know, was doing a lot of television, I've never had a break of service. I've been 15 years this coming January in Special Forces.
Okay.
So I've always had a foot in both worlds, and has given me an opportunity to see really how difficult it is for military guys to transition and reintegrate into society, and vice versa, watching civilians have such a difficult time understanding what it is that this bearded, tattooed dude that just came back from 15 years at war acts like. And it's I think I've had maybe a totally unique perspective because I've always been in both worlds. And now I'm just trying to chip away at the, I don't know, stereotypes that exist on both sides.
Yeah, and you seem like you're always a pretty positive guy. You know, you constantly working out, doing things, reaching for goals, things like that. For you, a guy that's been through the things that you've been through, I mean, you've got to look at the average civilian complaining about their coffee not being warm enough or something and just shake your fucking head, right?
I mean, yeah, but I also really hate lukewarm coffee, you know? It's like drinking lukewarm champagne. It's just not supposed to happen.
You know, I was gonna bring that up actually at some point. You know, how you've managed, you know, your disposition. You know, it is very positive. It is very. You have somewhat of a very zen outlook to do kind of what you do, and I think a lot of it, just reading up on you, and just the person you became, the person you are, is just all about choices. And it's not like you said. I asked you about what bug bit you. It's just a small series of small choices, as you talked about, that creates the kind of human being that you are. And you know, that's obviously you've applied that to your post-conflict, post-war, coming home kind of attitude. You didn't let obviously that stuff define you. You really do have a very very well balanced and understanding that it's an internal struggle, not necessarily external, etc. Speak to that if you don't mind, man, because I think that's very, very powerful.
Yeah, I think maybe people forget sometimes. You know, they see smiles, they see positive. You know, they see me doing yoga and they see me being a martial art instructor, and they forget what a savage I am. You know, they forget the villages I've burnt down and the things that I have done for this thing that we call freedom. And it is all about balance. It's all about contrast. You know, I'm going to leave here in not very long, and I'm going to go to some place that I won't have any Wi-Fi. I won't have any hot coffee or cold champagne. I won't even have any real food. All I'm going to have is a bunch of people that want me to die. And right now, I'm walking through the woods with my son and wife with my shirt off, talking to you guys on my AirBuds and my iPhone 10. You know,
life is good.
Life is good. But the stark contrast of those two things is what keeps me balanced. You know, it's not that I'm this blind lady of justice holding the scales and things have to be even, but I would go insane if I didn't have that balance. Yeah. And you know, and I find it in the I think the craziest of places sometimes, but I have to have it.
Well, even the role you say, for lack of a better term, fear, and I found this very fascinating because I try to apply this myself, and it doesn't always quite work that way. You have a hurry up and fail attitude. It is your approach to some things. You're not as afraid of failing. You look at it as more of a lesson and a teaching possibility than defining who you are. I heard that the other day on an Aubrey Marcus interview that you did. I found that very interesting. In some of your workouts, you're telling yourself sometimes, hurry up and fail, hurry up and fail. Talk to me about that. Talk to us about that.
Well, man, first of all, I never want to. Pat, you've been with some pretty competitive dudes, right? Maybe some of the most competitive dudes on the planet. I would put it to the test that, you know, you're talking to maybe the most competitive guy on the planet. So when I say hurry up and fail, it is not going to be easy. You know, I go and I try and find the fastest sprinter, and I want to race him. And I want to find the biggest, strongest power lifter, and I want to beat him. And I want to find, you know, like this tiny little contortionist yoga instructor and show her that I'm more flexible and I can hold a pose longer. You know, like, so when I say hurry up and fail, it's not like I'm rushing to the opportunity of not completing something.
Right.
It's I want to find that thing that's going to push me so far that ultimately I can't do it. And and knowing who I am, that will enrage me to a degree that I can't even put into words. And I will then, with that singular focus, try with every ounce of who I am to get better, get stronger, get faster, get harder to kill, so I won't have to face that humiliation of failure again, because God, it stings. You know, when I walk out of an octagon and I didn't win, it hurts indescribably. And then I come back as a better version of the thing that went in there last time.
Right. Now, have you ever done any ultra running, Tim?
Yeah, and it hurts really bad. When I say ultra running, it's not the distance. Like I've done a couple of marathons, which I think is ultra. The insanity that you do is. I mean, I don't know.
I think we need to get you. I think we need to get you into it.
I think him and Dave Clark could have some interesting conversations.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I always have to balance because of my job still. I still have to be able to pick up a car or take somebody's face and make it vaporize in my hand when I put it up against a wall.
Right. Well, we can get you doing 50 milers though. You'd still be good.
Okay. Bye. Well, let's give it a whirl, man. I'll go for it.
All right. I love it.
No, I mean, obviously, I again, not to belabor the point necessarily, but like I said, you kind of notice like come out the other side because you're still on your journey, and I mean that's kind of another part of the larger hero's journey that we all go through. There's such a huge fear component. There's such a huge narrative that we tell ourselves, like you said, failings. We're so afraid of failing and we can't do this or that. When in actuality, in order for the hero to really become the hero, he has to leave the porch, if you will. He has to go into the deep, dark woods and face the monster. And obviously, you've done that times 10. How do you recommend people kind of get out of their own way, unchain their mind, if you will, to quote C.T. Fletcher, and really kind of become the person we're really kind of meant to be, man? Oftentimes I just see it too much, man. I went through it myself. Just being in my own way has fucked up a lot of shit, and getting out of my own way has wrought some pretty cool stuff, this show being one of them.
Being comfortable is committing yourself to mediocrity the rest of your life. Right. Plain and simple. If you want to be lukewarm coffee, cool. That's easy to do. Room temperature coffee, it just sits there and it's comfortable. If you want to be extraordinary, you have to have the courage to fail. You have to be able to step into the batter's box knowing that you could strike out and still swing. To the Michael Jordan, how many free throws did he miss? How many three-pointers did he miss? How many times did Babe Ruth go up and strike out? How many, every one of those examples, even though they're cliche,
right? It's
ultimately
true.
the commonality is that they were still there. They succeeded because they gave themselves that chance to fail, and that's that hurry up and fail. That's that you have to have the courage. It's better to go out and fail than to have never tried. Like I might be getting my ass kicked in the gym, but I'm still doing better than dude on the couch.
Yeah. Well, and you've also spoken about, and we've spoken about how they've really emasculated our young men in this country, and there's been kind of an attack on masculinity. What role does that play in kind of our not to sound sexist, whatever, I don't give a fuck. Our men just not being men, as you talked about being protectors and providers, etc. Where's the disconnect, man? We're the nation of skinny jeans and this weird kind of nothing's wrong with this being effeminate males, but there is a war on masculinity in this country.
Yeah, and that's a little bit our own fault. We had some asshole dudes doing a bunch of nasty things, and then we had other dudes that weren't stepping up and being the men that they should have been. Like Harvey Weinstein, he's a piece of crap. I want to knock his teeth in. With that said, I'm more mad at the other 40, 50, 60 dudes that were standing in that room, and they watched that fat old man take a 16-year-old girl and walk into a hotel room with her.
Yeah.
I'm more mad at those 60 guys. So masculinity is a beautiful, powerful thing. No, we're not trying to carve our existence out of the face of a mountain anymore and fighting bears. But we have an opportunity to embrace and embody and just freaking love the power of being a man, and it is a great, gorgeous thing. And a beautiful feminine woman with a big, powerful man creates balance. And balance is strength, and balance is power. Like the harder the metal, the more brittle it can get. But then you get that sweet spot where you pound out the impurities, and through the forging process of the fire and the flame, the failures of it slowly erode, and all you're left with is this balanced, sharp, murderous thing. And that's what the powerful man and the most beautiful, powerful feminine female can be together. And it's it's not that I want an apocalypse, but there will be a time where in the very near future where we're going to remember how bad we need men. And we need examples of what a man looks like. And a man is a man that would never hurt something weaker than him. A man is a man that would never hurt a girl, that would never take advantage of a situation or his power or his authority over anybody for his own benefit. But we got to find those men, and then we got to put them in positions of power, and then we got to remember what free thinkers can do.
And speaking of men in positions of power, overall, how would you say, compared to the last administration, how is the military responding to this president and this administration compared to the last one?
Man, we like to win. You want to talk about a group of people that aren't good at losing? The military is not good at losing. And we spent 15 years just existing, driving down roads and getting blown up, and ground that we fought for in Fallujah and Sadr City and Ramadi and Baghdad and the Helmand and Singar, and I mean every single area of land in Afghanistan and Iraq, land that we fought for from 2004 to 2008, we then lost. And from 2008 to 2016, we just kind of watched it disappear and get taken over by a bunch of assholes. And then 2016 rolled around, and we decided to start winning again. And we took every single inch of that land back, and every single fanatic, radicalized piece of crap is on the run, hoping that they survive one more night.
And John Troxel, are you familiar with John Troxel, I'm sure, right?
Yep.
Okay, John Troxel actually is from my area, and he used to train down at my gym. I'd walk in the gym, and he'd be in there hanging off an I-beam with a training mask on. He's always been a really hardcore guy. And when you've got a guy in the Pentagon that makes a statement that offends a lot of liberals that says, that ISIS can they've got two choices, either give up or be shot in the face and beat to death with an entrenchment tool. You've got the right guys leading the military again.
Yeah, that's what's happening. We're clearly I'm deploying a couple of times in the next few months. I have no say in that. What I had was a boss that said, hey, you're a special operations guy, get your gun. You're going to go to war. I don't care who you are, and I don't care what your job is. That's what you're going to do. And I was like, I think for a little bit, people forgot what it meant to have a man with the nickname of Mad Dog as your Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
And, what's happening right now is if you are in special operations and you are not deploying, you are getting kicked out of the military. And it is, man. That leaves... When we're talking about refiner fire and the chaff in the wind, that those light little pieces of crap are blowing away, and the ones that do want to do war fighting, they're suiting up, they're grabbing their body armor, and they're just loading magazines.
It's kick ass. No, it really is. It really is it gives a lot of hope to people back here, knowing that these guys, and I'm sure it's a shot in the arm for the military going, finally, Mad Dog Mattis and Troxel and guys like that. Who are not screwing around. They're just the leash has been taken off of everybody, and it's time to kick ass.
Yeah, and kicking ass is what we like to do. That's what we're gonna do, man. It is. I wish I could, maybe this time next year we could circle back about what has happened in the past 6 months and what's going to happen in the next 12 months. And
because that was just actually what I was going to ask you. What are your prognostications? I mean, the theaters of war seem to be changing quite a bit. We have radical Muslim Uyghurs in Western China. We have ISIS now in the Philippines. I mean, it's this grand chessboard is changing by the day, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, they're running to the corners of the world because the areas that they have been comfortable operating with are now scorched earth. So if you want to see what the trajectory is, it's like just tear your shirt open right now and hopefully you have red, white, and blue either tattooed or painted on your chest and start screaming freedom, because that's what's happening.
Yeah, it's great. Now you don't have to reply to this necessarily one way or another, but in doing our research, we were looking into money and arms falling into al-Nusra and ISIS hands through Western intelligence, whatever.
NATO.
A good friend of mine who owns an intelligence company, I asked him point blank, 4.5 years ago, dude, are we responsible partly for arming ISIS? And he goes, yeah, 100%. And you don't have to respond to that because of the job that you're doing. But, I asked him when Trump got in, I said, did Trump cease the programs of arming and funding the terrorists in Syria? And he said, yes. So, and he said unequivocally 100% yes. He stopped that. So I was very happy about that because, look, our people, including you, are over in places like that fighting. I'd prefer you not get killed by people that happen to be funded and armed by Western sources.
Amen.
Yeah, man, I hope we break the cycle. You go back to Vietnam, you go back to the Taliban fighting the Russians in Afghanistan.
Right.
You see people that were trained and armed by Americans. I would love to break the cycle. I'm obviously not going to answer. That wasn't really a question, but I'm just going to nod my head and smile.
Right. No, and I think you could probably respond to this. I see it very different. The funding the Mujahideen in Afghanistan against Russia was obviously one. There was the resources of Afghanistan were kind of important, obviously, but it was also to break the bank of Russia and let them, destroy their country financially with that war, which was a smart move by Reagan. I just see the stuff that's going on or went on in the last administration as not having that type of motivation. That's all I can say.
Well,
yeah, we want to win wars in every single way, economically, like physically, literally, and metaphorically, and I think we are teeing ourselves up to do that in every way.
Right.
Let me ask you something. Well, as a part of this grand chessboard, and today does happen to be Vietnam Veterans Day, so thank you very much to all of our Vietnam veterans out there. Something we bring up on this show, the kind of the social.
Yeah, you're fine.
Hello? Oh.
Yeah, you're good. Sorry.
The social engineering aspect of war, with today being the Vietnam Vietnam's Veterans Day, we now know about the Gulf of Tonkin and the event that precipitated the Vietnam War. And through declassified documents, we find out that never happened. And that's something that I can't even begin to articulate how bad that pisses me off, because millions of Vietnamese were killed, 58,000 Americans killed in action, however many killed at home through suicides or drug overdoses. All of that, quote unquote, based off of kind of a lie. What are your thoughts on that, man? That's so beyond unacceptable. That young people, people like yourself go out there and fight for something they believe in, only to be kind of told later on down the line that it didn't necessarily have to happen that way.
Wars have always been fought by the working class. The people that go to war and make those kids go and fight in those wars have always been the elite.
Yeah.
I hope that changes. Not that I hope that the Roseanne TV show, but she said something pretty profound yesterday, where they asked, that TV show that was on for how many years with John Goodman. Is it Roxanne or Roseanne?
Roseanne, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Tom
Roseanne.
Arnold, or was it?
Yeah. I think it was John Goodman. Well, it's coming back on the air, and her
That's
character
right.
is going to be kind of pro-Trumpish.
Right.
And everybody's losing their mind that the show is going to, with a pro-Trump main character, is going to be like, this is impossible. This can't be.
19 billion viewers.
Yeah, it was huge.
Well, she was asked yesterday on, I think, The View or one of those morning talk shows, what do you think would have happened with her in the years between? And she said, I think her heart would have broken because she was watching all of her friends, because her character is middle class,
Yes.
blue collar, hardworking. She's like, her heart would have broken because she would have watched all of her friends' sons go to war, in a war that is being forgotten, and a war that people have forgotten is still being fought.
Yeah.
And I was like, God dang, girl! Like, could you have not hit that nail more smartly on the head? And that has to change. I don't do I think that Ivanka's Trump kids are going to end up fighting in a war? No, I know I don't. But I do hope that the wisdom and the candor of guys like Mattis and the next generation of leaders, because we've been at war for 16 years, those are going to be people that are going to have the opportunity to step into the limelight, to step into a political forum, maybe even on a ballot, and say, hey, man, I fought in a war. I fought in the war, the longest running war in our country's history.
Yeah.
And we're now going to vote differently about when we go to war and why we go to war. And it's not going to make some rich white dude that owns a government contracting company just a little bit richer.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be a change in that cycle because, what did Smedley Butler say? War is a racket, and unfortunately that just appears to be all too true. Man, moving on a little bit because I know I don't want to keep you too much longer. You were just super busy, dude. One of the shows that's really been awesome I checked out called Hunting Hitler. If you don't mind, how did that get started, man?
Woof. Man, the reoccurring conversation, rumors, the ever-present, man, did Hitler get out of the bunker, is like people have been talking about for 75 years. When you find the Skorzynskis and the Adolf Eichmanns and the Joseph Mengeles dying of old age in South America, and you say, okay, well, his number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 all made it out, and the only guys that went to the Nuremberg trials were a bunch of scapegoats. So,
right.
How is it that this asshole, that he died in the bunker, if everybody else below him made it out? Now, just try to think how the possibility would be that if Trump, Mattis, Flynn, like every one of what was his inner circle, if all of them made it out, but then he stayed there,
right? It doesn't make sense.
It's just no, it's impossible.
Right.
So that was the origin. That was the genesis. Is okay. We have technology and we have a skill set of people now that have been hunting humans. We have ground penetrating radar. We have drones, and we have a group of people that are really good at hunting other people, which is me and my friends. And they said, let's go see what happened if we take that power of perception and technology and direct it at this rumor, this conspiracy, and see if there's any truth to it. So that's how it started.
Now, did the pictures that came out of it looks an awful lot like Hitler and Eva Braun on a boat dock down in South America in the 50s. What's your analysis of that?
I hate seeing pictures like that. It infuriates me. You're like, 12 million Jews, were burnt and gassed. So that super sucks. Right. And here's this dude living with his wife in an affluent, powerful position in South America till he grows old and dies of his illnesses, and makes me want to burn the world down. He had that's the hard thing about pictures is there's so many body doubles, there's so many altered photos.
Right.
You really have to get on the ground, and we are looking for legitimate, physical, conclusive evidence, not conjecture, not
right.
And that's hard.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Did you guys conclude anything beyond kind of circumstantial, anything definitive necessarily?
Do you consider eyewitnesses definitive? Because we now have about 14 people that we interviewed that with their own eyes, which were young eyes but are now old eyes, say that they physically saw him. What we were able to prove was that the routes were in place for him to get out. I don't think anybody can dispute that. And I think we have proved that the evidence that was in the bunker that was supposed to be Hitler is not Hitler. What we don't have is that smoking gun. We don't have, here is the body of Hitler.
Right.
And that's something I want to see.
You should sometime, and I'll shoot you a video sometime. We had him on not too long ago, an Oxford PhD.
You had Hitler?
No, Dr. Joseph P. Farrell is his name, and he's an author of a book called Nazi International. And it's just very fascinating because his premise is pretty much the Germans won the war, the Nazis didn't, and they took so much of that stolen Nazi loot and did go down to South America, and through that, over the next several decades, started implementing kind of their own agenda here in the West with financial institutions, et cetera, and putting that money back into play. Pretty interesting stuff.
Interesting and scary.
Yeah.
There might not be that might be a lot more accurate than people would want to say.
Yeah, exactly. Well, your newest show, man, I was like, whoa, Tim, what are you trying to do? Do you have like on a death wish or something? This new show called Hard to Kill. My man, I wish you the best. Oh my God, talk to us about this show, brother. Seriously.
I should have made a lot better life decisions. I think all the show is going to show is that I'm dumb.
Tim has a death wish.
Yeah, and we're going to show millions of people what the inside of my body looks like over and over again, which is usually red and leaky.
You're doing Special Forces Fear Factor on yourself.
Pretty much.
Yeah, they're like, let's take this plane, lock you inside of it, and set it on fire with aviation fuel. Okay, go.
So what is the premise, though? The premise of the show is...
Think Anthony Bourdain, Sights Unseen, right? Where we're going and learning about some of the most extraordinary Americans that walk this beautiful green country. They're the ones that make it tick. They're the ones that put food on our table, that put gas in our car, that make planes fly. And their lives and their jobs specifically are just inherently dangerous. They die a lot. I go and find those people, and we explore what it looks like to do live in their world. And then I go and I recreate their worst nightmare to see how I do under those circumstances.
So when does this air?
We're about 2 months out from episode 1 hitting Discovery, and it is going to be epic.
Wow.
No, I think it's going to be a great show. I think we're talking to you, so you've made it through most of the filming, obviously, which is encouraging.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I'm still alive. There were definitely periods of time where I had to take breaks from filming so I could get healed, get stitches out, get things realigned, and then go back to doing it some more.
I don't know, man. Wow. I'd be tapping out, man. I would be tapping out. But again, this is who you are, bro. And this is so beautiful. This is the fabric of who you are. And also this goes into, the creation of and your philosophy behind your Sheepdog Response. Talk to us about that, because that's the whole kind of mantra behind Sheepdog Response. You really do embody that with everything you're talking about here and the way you approach life.
Yeah, so Sheepdog Response is, it's this concept of, we're only free when we're strong. When the people, freedom exists only on the far side of hard work. And so people, Pat, as you don't get good at wrestling by learning a move. You get good at wrestling by sweating, bleeding, living, breathing that thing every single day.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to show people.
And, tell us about the training a little bit more. Obviously, you work on defensive tactics, submission grappling, probably, ground escapes, weapon retention, but you also do a lot of range work with them, don't you?
Yeah, man, we get after it for sure. The day's kind of broken down into 6 hours of shooting and 6 hours of fighting.
Okay.
The fighting is weapon retention, the fundamentals of wrestling, boxing, jiu-jitsu. We just take the basics of what somebody should know when it comes to protecting themselves, and we pressure test it, and then we make people learn it. And that's like to your point. That's just kind of how I was able to do this show. Is I'm like decent at the basics of everything. I'm not a Ferrari. I'm like a really, really good Ford. That's been repaired about 100 times. And
basics are what win, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's really what it comes down to. Rarely are you going to see a spinning technique in the fight unless that guy was already kicking the hell out of somebody and wanted to highlight a real finish.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly, man. You got to be good at the basics.
And when it was interesting watching, the skills you do implement. I mean, this isn't just. It's not just rolling jiu-jitsu. This one of the guys you were rolling with. You're like, look, man, I just ripped your eyeballs out, dude. Like, this isn't just a wrestling with your older brother type scenario. Like you were showing these guys like real hardcore fighting technique, and it's something that one of our former guests, former Russian Spetsnaz, Sonny Puzik, has talked about being trained and prepared for certain levels of violence that most people just can't mentally fathom. And you do that with Sheepdog. Pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, just today in jiu-jitsu class, we talked about now showed how to earn a dominant position, initiating scrambles to get to somebody's back, arm drags from the guard or collar throw-bys from the guard. And then he hands it over to me. He says, okay, now the other part of martial arts is being able to be violent. And it was, okay, now that you have their back, I'm going to take the back of their face and I'm going to smash it into the ground so many times that I'm going to have soup. We're going to make soup. That's going to be our first course is soup.
But it's practical, like you said.
I've got to ask you because I've had people not only quit my training. We do 40-hour training courses around the country, different academies, whatever. But we've had law enforcement officers not only quit our training, but quit the department because of the training. Have you had that happen yet?
Yeah, we have about 10% of our students not show up for the second day.
Right.
And I want that to be 0. I want everybody to get every second of the training because I think it's life-saving. But if they don't show up to the second day of training, I hope that they quit the department.
Well, and it's a weeding out process. I mean, you and I both know there's a lot of people out there, unfortunately, through the way things have gone in society with everybody having a camera with their phone. Cops are more worried about being sued than being killed anymore. And a lot of people that would have made great police officers simply don't want to be a police officer because of the shit they have to deal with now.
Yeah. We're in such a great era of our lives where we have had such great times, and those great times have made weak men, and those weak men are going to make hard times. But what hard times do is make hard men. And, we're in the middle of that cycle where we have my life and my kids' lives. They have been so fortunate to be in a really good era where there's very low poverty and there's very little struggle, and because of that, they got complacent. They forgot how a combustion motor works. They forgot how to change their oil, and they forgot how to make coffee, and they forgot how to grow food, and they forgot how to hunt for food, and they forgot how to be human.
But they wanted to dress like it, though, Tim and Pat. They wanted to wear a flannel and grow a beard and almost look like, quote unquote, a man, as opposed to, like you said, being able to change it.
I have a beard and I'm wearing a flannel. Why'd you have to say that?
Well, you're pretty tried and true. Your male card is well intact, Pat. I'm just saying, some of these young kids, as we see it, it's a thing as opposed to like really, having it really be something that you're about. So,
right.
Crazy times we are living in. Well, Tim Kennedy, anything you want to shout out? Any social networking, man, where we can track you down? Obviously, you're going to be gone for a little while, and we obviously wish you the best and beyond, sir. Thank you for your service. Where can we track you down, buddy?
I'm, everything for me in Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook is all Tim Kennedy MMA. Sheepdog Response. I'm passionate about that mission, and let's make some more independent, free-minded thinkers that are going to change the world.
Absolutely. And you guys brought Jeremy Horn on to do some grappling, right? To teach.
Yeah, like Jeremy Horn and one of my friends, Travis Lloyd and Johnny Primo. They all live in Salt Lake.
Nice.
And Jeremy Horn's gym is, that's going to be a Sheepdog hub where we're going to run lots of courses out of there and a lot of shooting out of there. And, we're hopefully going to elevate both him and his gym.
Yeah, because Jeremy's gotten heavily into the 3-gun competitions also.
Yeah, he's good.
So
he's a good.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys brought him on because he's a very, very knowledgeable guy. I think he's got, honestly, he never fought a fake fight. There was never a work in his career, and he's got 170 to 190 victories in MMA. The guy was amazing. He trained with me for 10 years, and he was nonstop. He was fighting in Nebraska on Friday and Iowa on Saturday every week.
He's amazing. I have nothing but the greatest things to say about him, and pretty much every guy that trained with you. You guys had a pretty extraordinary group of men, and I was fortunate to be able to watch it.
Paying the bills.
Yeah, the militant fighting system was absolutely no joke. Well, Mr. Tim Kennedy.
Look forward to a new show coming out.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Hard to Kill, ladies and gentlemen, on the Discovery Channel. You can also check out Hunting Hitler on the History Channel. Man, Mr. Tim Kennedy, thank you again so much. Please, sir, please come back, talk to us. Be safe. Take care of yourself and your family. Pat, any closing words?
No, thank you much, Tim. Great talking to you.
No, thanks, guys. Thank you. Have an awesome day.
I appreciate it. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. There will always be more. Peace, buddy.